There's been a popular trend in anime recently, with shows that are just complete, unapologetic power fantasies. Basically asking the question, what if a complete nobody became one of the most powerful and charismatic beings in existence? And no series does this better than Solo Leveling. Seriously, we're about to see our man Jinwoo go from this to this.
Well, look at you, Mr. Popular.
Solo Leveling is a 2024 anime based on a popular South Korean web novel written by Chu Gong. The series follows an unassuming Sung Jinwoo on his journey from being one of the weakest people in the universe to the absolute strongest. The series has become incredibly popular due to its amazing battle animations, as well as the fact that it explores a question I'm sure all of us have fantasized about at some point. What if my life became a video game? The series so far covers about the first 100 chapters of the web novel, but we've still got at least 100 more to go, so strap in. And without further ado, let's get into the entire story of Solo Leveling so far.
Can remember to forget, little boy who lost a bet. Now I'm racking up the kills.
Our first episode starts off 3 years ago. 3 years ago from what though? I'm not sure. A fleet of warships are stationed at Jeju Island, off the coast of South Korea. The Hunters Guild has been tasked with raiding this island to exterminate an army of gigantic killer ants. Hunters going to an island to fight a species of super ants. Now, why does that sound familiar? The Hunters are a group of men and women armed with swords, shields, and magic, but most of them are no match for these monster ants. Fortunately, they get saved by 3 way more powerful hunters. These are S-rank hunters, each one capable of taking on a whole army of ants by themselves. Nearby, the S-ranked leader of Precious Hunters Guild, Choi Jong-in, watches the battle with pride before launching a massive fireball attack. Roasted ant, anyone? Hello? So, here's a little backdrop. 10 years ago, gates to an alternate dimension suddenly began popping up all over the world. Magic beasts that are immune to all conventional weapons start pouring out of the gates and causing mass destruction. But at the same time the gates started appearing, magical combat abilities began to awaken in some humans, who became known as hunters. Hunters can either work independently or join a guild for more structure and stability. The aptly named Hunters Guild is the biggest guild in Korea. Additionally, hunters are ranked based on their power level, from the legendary S ranks we just saw all the way down to the much weaker E ranks. Whatever power level you awaken at is the one you're stuck with, because there is no way to increase your magical abilities. At least, no way that anyone has discovered yet. So now we're jumping to 3 years after the raid on Jeju Island, where a group of hunters are preparing to enter a gate and explore the dungeon within. See, when a gate appears, if hunters don't enter it and defeat its boss within 7 days, the gate will break and monsters will begin flooding our world. Interestingly, inside the gates they can find valuable essence stones that can be used to make magical weapons and armor. The stones also provide a limitless source of clean energy, so the government is willing to pay quite a bit for them. Anyway, the hunters are preparing to enter the dungeon when our protagonist, Sung Jinwoo, enters. Nicknamed the weakest hunter of all mankind. Sounds harsh! As his nickname implies, Jinwoo is an E-ranked hunter who is especially weak, even for the bottom rank. He got his nickname after he was hospitalized in an E-rank dungeon, which is supposed to be the easiest level of dungeon that even children could clear. The other hunters are actually pretty nice to Jinwoo though, including his B-rank healer friend Lee Joo-hee and the raid's older team leader Mr. Song. See, each dungeon has its own rank on the same scale as the hunters. This one is only a D rank, but inside the dungeon we get a first-hand look at just how weak Jinwoo is. He struggles against a single low-level goblin, breaks his dagger, and gets stabbed in the chest. Wow, they were not kidding! Jinwoo has to be saved by another hunter and healed by Joo-hee. While he's sitting on the sidelines, the team manages to defeat the dungeon's boss, a giant werewolf. Joo-hee tells Jinwoo that he has to be more careful, and pretty much implies that if he's this weak, maybe being a hunter isn't the right job for him. Damn! When your friend is telling you it's time to quit, maybe you should listen.
I thought your stomach was all that needed healing, but you're hurt everywhere.
The hunters count up their loot and are disappointed to see they barely got any essence stones. Just then, one of the hunters notices a tunnel leading deeper into the dungeon. dungeon. This means they are in a rare double dungeon. They're technically supposed to report this to the Hunters Association before entering, but they don't want to give other hunters a chance to nab the essence stones inside. They take a vote on entering, and it's a dead tie with Jinwoo as the deciding vote. He knows he won't even be able to help in this next dungeon, and his friend Joo-hee wants to leave. But bro does not have it easy at home. His dad is missing, his mom is sick and needs expensive treatment, and on top of all of that, it's all on Jinwoo to pay his younger sister's college tuition. He really needs the money and votes to explore the second dungeon. Big mistake, Jinwoo. Joo-hee tells Jinwoo he's an idiot for taking a risk like this, but says he can make it up to her by taking her out to dinner sometime. The hunters come to a massive set of stone doors and enter what looks like some kind of ceremonial chamber. The doors slam shut behind them, and as soon as a hunter tries to reopen it, a giant stone statue comes to life and slaughters him. Another statue shoots a massive beam from its eyes that incinerates multiple hunters. Jinwoo shoves Joo-hee out of the way to save her life, but he has a bad feeling that this may be the final raid for humanity's weakest hunter. Episode 2 starts, and the hunters are all completely freaking out, including Joo-hee, who is paralyzed with fear and unable to heal any of her wounded comrades. Who's useless now, little Miss Healer? Team leader Mr. Song lost an arm in the attack, but the guy is actually a great leader and doesn't even let that faze him. Mr. Song tries to calm everyone down and tells them that the statue's attacks seem to be triggered by movement. Then Jinwoo reads a stone tablet on the wall that says the hunters must prove their faith if they want to leave alive. Jinwoo tells everyone to bow down to the largest statue, and it works. If his goal was to make things even worse. The giant statue starts grinning and stands up from his throne. The big fella starts stomping across the room, crushing hunters left and right. Brutal! Jinwoo sees some statues around the room holding instruments and realizes they must be the safe ones. He orders the survivors to each run to one of the musician statues and drags Joo-hee, who is still in shock. It turns out only one person is allowed at each statue, so Jinwoo has to run all the way across the chamber to the only safe statue left. He reaches it, but loses a foot in the process. Outside, Jinwoo's younger sister Gina is visiting their mother in the hospital. Mom is in a coma, and she's suffering from the most anime-sounding condition I've ever heard of: eternal sleep disease. Basically, she's permanently asleep, and the doctors have zero clue why. I guess nobody really needs science anymore in a world with magic. In the dungeon, the survivors all move to an altar in the middle of the room. As soon as they're all there, the doors swing open and the statues start approaching. Jinwoo believes the open door is a trap and insists that everyone stay on the altar to prove their faith. But these guys aren't about to take orders from the weakest hunter of all mankind, and they all run straight for the door, leaving only Jinwoo, Joo-hee, and Mr. Song. Every time someone leaves the altar, the doors close a little bit more, so Mr. Song says that one of them will need to stay behind to keep them open. As the kick-ass team leader he is, Mr. Song offers to stay behind himself, but that won't work since Jinwoo is down one foot and Joo-hee is still in no condition to carry him. Jinwoo tells Joo-hee that he will keep his promise of buying her dinner and hands her the one essence stone he was able to collect. Then Mr. Song carries Joo-hee out, leaving Jinwoo alone to face the statues. The statues torture and mutilate Jinwoo while he curses himself for his own weakness. His bloody, broken body lands right on top of the altar when a strange message suddenly appears in front of him. It asks Jinwoo if he would like to become a player. Since the other option seems to be dying horrifically, he hits yes. Our next episode begins, and Jinwoo wakes up in the hospital with no injuries and all of his limbs still attached. Two officials from the Hunter Association stop by and tell Jinwoo it's been 3 days since the dungeon raid, and they found his body laying right outside gate. Joo-hee and Mr. Song both survive, but will be retiring as hunters after the trauma they went through. The officials are now curious how an E-rank hunter could have survived something so dangerous. In some rare instances, a hunter can go through through a second awakening, where they gain some magical boosts and become a higher rank practically overnight. The officials use a mana meter to measure Jinwoo's power level, but no dice. Bro is at a measly power level of 10, while the average E-rank hunter is somewhere around 70. Oof! As soon as they leave, Jinwoo notices a screen floating in front of him that nobody else can see. He suddenly remembers that he agreed to become a player, and slowly comes to realize that his life has basically become an RPG. The system gives him a daily quest called Strength Training that consists of 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run. Is this system trying to make the guy go bald? The system warns Jinwoo that he will face a penalty if he fails to complete his daily mission, but Jinwoo is a bad gamer and completely ignores it. As soon as midnight hits, Jinwoo is teleported to a vast desert landscape and is attacked by an enormous centipede monster. The system tells him his new punishment mission is to survive for 4 hours. He manages to survive by just running for his life the entire time and gets teleported back to the hospital exhausted. The next day, Joo-hee comes to visit Jinwoo, and she is shocked to see him fully recovered and running laps around the hospital. At least he's learned his lesson. When he completes his daily quest, Jinwoo gets recovery items, skill points, and a random loot box. Jinwoo thinks back on how weak he has been in every raid up to now and starts dumping all of his points into his strength stat. Going straight for the glass cannon build is an interesting choice. Inside the loot box is a key that will take Jinwoo to an instance dungeon. Basically, a new dungeon that exists only for Jinwoo to explore and loot. He teleports in and is immediately attacked by 3 goblins. He struggles to dodge their attacks, but is able to cut through them thanks to his increased strength. Before he can even catch his breath though, a giant wolf with a metal jaw lunges toward him, and Jinwoo starts to think he may be a little underleveled for his dungeon. You think? In the next episode, Jinwoo can barely hold his own against the wolf. Like I said before, Jinwoo is a bad gamer who didn't even check his skills or inventory before jumping into a dungeon. What a noob! He finally thinks of this mid-fight and equips a sword that he uses to take out multiple wolves. With that, Jinwoo hits level 2. Hey, everyone's gotta start somewhere. Jinwoo is then attacked by a whole pack of wolves, but he thinks that compared to the terror he felt with the killer statues, this is nothing. The more Jinwoo fights, the stronger he gets, and the easier the wolf slaying gets. He defeats the last one and gets a teleportation stone he can use to leave the dungeon. But Jinwoo isn't about to leave when there's still experience to be farmed. Outside, Joo-hee is walking home when she gets a call from the Hunters Association. She is still dealing with the trauma from the double dungeon, but the association tells her they desperately need a healer for a dungeon break nearby. She thinks about how Jinwoo is already back to training after going through the same trauma as her, and she agrees to help. Jinwoo soon encounters the dungeon's boss, an enormous snake monster. Despite the overwhelming odds, Jinwoo refuses to back down and launches himself onto the snake's back. He grabs the beast's neck with his bare hands and starts to squeeze.
I know I can kill you right here and now!
Damn! Jinwoo is actually becoming a beast of his own. The monster is slain, and Jinwoo gets a bunch of experience plus a C-rank poison dagger. The dungeon disappears, and Jinwoo is teleported back to the real world. As soon as he's back, a soldier tells Jinwoo he needs to leave the area as there has been a dungeon break. He tells the soldiers that he is a hunter and asks where to go. When he reaches the gate, Jinwoo sees hunters fighting against a D-rank stone golem. Jinwoo sees that Joo-hee is among them and decides to help her out while testing his new strength. He hurls a broken sword at the golem and shatters the beast's defenses, allowing the other hunters to easily defeat it. Joo-hee catches a glimpse of Jinwoo walking away and wonders if he was responsible. Episode 5 starts, and I'm not sure why Jinwoo is even still in the hospital at this point, but it might have something to do with the attention he's getting from all the nurses.
Guy looks scrawny until he takes his shirt off, then it's like, oh damn.
When did we admit a patient as ripped as that?
He continues to complete his strength training quest every day until his body is ripped. And as he is finally getting discharged, a cute nurse asks for his phone number. Jinwoo isn't used to this attention though, and thinks she just needs it for his paperwork. This is why you need to put more points into charisma, my man! When he gets home, his sister Gina can tell Jinwoo has changed too. Not only is he shredded and has better hair, he's taller and has better posture as well. Damn, I gotta start getting some skill points for myself. While he may be raking in the experience and stat points, Jinwoo is still broke when it comes to real-world money. He doesn't want to draw attention to himself by suddenly signing up for high-ranked dungeons, so he settles for a nearby C-rank gate. He meets up with his raid group, led by the friendly Dong-suk. Dong-suk's group is a party that regularly does raids together, and they need an extra 2 hunters to meet the minimum requirement for this gate. They all recognize Jinwoo as the weakest hunter and tell him to hang in the back while they do all the work. Yeah. Jinwoo thinks it's strange that the party is doing a raid without a healer, but shrugs it off. The party is joined by the young Jinho, a chatty D-rank hunter wearing expensive gear for his very first raid. Aww. The party enters the gate and are soon attacked by insect beasts. They're nothing special, and Dong-suk's party has no trouble defeating them even without Jinwoo's help. Even still, Jinwoo can't help but feel like something is off with this party. It must be the increased intelligence he got from leveling up. Before long, the party reaches the boss's lair, a huge cavern full of mana crystals, which are less valuable than essence stones but are still worth a good amount. Dong-suk tells Jinwoo and Jinho to wait there while the rest of the party goes back for mining equipment.
All right. Go ahead and seal off the entrance to the lair if you want.
As soon as they're out of the room, these bastards cause a cave-in that traps our 2 boys in the room and wakes up the giant spider boss. Apparently, these jerks are so greedy that they're willing to kill 2 people just so they don't have to split crystals with them. Jeez! They picked the wrong E rank to mess with though. Jinwoo pulls out his fancy new poison dagger and faces down the spider boss. In episode 6, Jinwoo is fast enough to hold his own against the giant spider, but he is barely making a scratch and his fatigue stat is increasing fast. Fortunately, he has a whole stockpile of recovery items from his daily quests, and he is able to heal back to 100% right before the spider makes a killing blow. Jinwoo uses his new dash skill to launch himself on top of the spider. He then hits its weak point with his new dagger to apply paralysis and drain debuffs. The magic beast soon falls, and Jinwoo gains a couple more levels. Jinho is stunned by this and assumes that Jinwoo must be a fake ranker. These are basically hunters who lie about being lower ranked just because they love killing things weaker than them. He's pretty much terrified of Jinwoo after this and starts calling him boss. Dong-suk and his party return to the cavern, shocked to see the 2 boys are still alive. They assume Jinho must have been the one to kill the boss using his expensive gear, and Dong-suk tells Jinho they'll only let him live if he kills Jinwoo for them. Jinho isn't about to turn on his new boss though. The party approaches and Jinwoo gets a sudden urgent quest, telling him to kill the 6 humans or his heart will stop. Sure, yeah, but what about the rewards? While he's distracted by the notification, the party's mage blasts Jinwoo into the cave wall. He gets back to his feet and calmly walks towards the party, accepting that this is the only way he can grow stronger. He slices one guy's head off and takes out the others within seconds. Once only Dong-suk is left, Jinwoo spills his secret and tells the bastard he's been leveling up this whole time.
I've been leveling up this whole time.
After that, he beheads Dong-suk and the 2 boys exit the dungeon covered in blood. Damn, I'm not saying they didn't have it coming, but it's still pretty scary how casual Jinwoo is about killing 6 people. If this game system has a morality mechanic, I don't think Jinwoo is doing too well on it. Our next episode starts with a worker at the Hunters Association telling his boss about the massacre during that last raid. Jinwoo and Jinho reported that the spider was responsible for killing Dong-suk and his party, but the association is a little suspicious that 2 lower-ranked hunters were the only survivors, and even more suspicious since this is the 2nd super dangerous dungeon Jinwoo has survived. Also, it turns out Dong-suk has a younger brother, an infamous S-ranked hunter named Dong-su. That's not great news for Jinwoo. Back at home, Jinwoo is having some fried chicken and beer with his sister, and he discovers that his poison resistance stat is so high, he can't even feel the effects of alcohol anymore. Oh man, what kind of lame RPG is this? Then, Jinwoo gets a call from Jinho asking to meet at a cafe. There, we learn that Jinho's father is the wealthy CEO of Yujin Construction, and his rich papa is planning to create a guild of his own. He wants Jinho's older brother, Jin Sung, to lead the guild, but Jinho Jinho wants to prove that he's the better son for the job, so Jinho asks Jinwoo to help him continue clearing the gates to prove himself, and offers to reward him with 30 billion won for just 20 raids. Damn, Jinho! But Jinwoo knows that since there's no limit to how much experience he can gain, there's really no limit to how strong he can get.
If I keep increasing my stats, I could even reach S rank.
30 billion is a lot, but it's nothing compared to how much Jinwoo can make if he gets as strong as an S rank. Plus, Jinwoo is really more of a lone wolf type anyways, so Jinwoo turns down Jinho's proposal and gives the poor boy a death stare to make sure he doesn't blab about Jinwoo's secret. Ooh, scary. Later, Jinwoo tries to decide doing double the required exercises for his daily quest, and he gets some pretty sweet secret rewards for it. Among them is a key that will take him to an S rank dungeon, and the system tells him that the reward for this dungeon is the Elixir of Life, a powerful medicine that can cure any illness. Jinwoo's mind immediately jumps to his comatose mother, and he wastes no time teleporting himself to the demon's castle. Jinwoo may have gotten a lot stronger, but he is not ready for that S rank smoke. He is attacked immediately by a massive 3-headed Cerberus beast that smacks Jinwoo around like it's nothing. Jinwoo is losing HP fast, and when he tries to use a teleportation stone to retreat, he straight up drops the damn thing. Should've leveled up your dexterity, bro. As usual, Jinwoo has the brilliant idea to explore the game system while in the middle of a fight. This time, he discovers the system shop where he can buy potions to buff his stats. The beast traps Jinwoo in his jaws and starts chipping away at his few remaining health points, but Jinwoo refuses to give up and stabs the beast over and over. In the end, Jinwoo comes out on top and levels up 5 more times. This dude is unstoppable. In episode 8, one of the rewards for killing the Cerberus beast was the recipe for the Elixir of Life, but Jinwoo will still need to get 3 ingredients from inside the demon's castle to create it. Considering how close of a call he just had, he decides to spend more time grinding experience before heading back in. The best way for him to do that is to just keep clearing dungeons, so he calls up Jinho and tells him that he's reconsidered the offer to team up. Jinwoo's only condition is that the two of them enter all of Gates alone, because he doesn't want anyone else seeing how insanely strong he is yet.
Fewer people going in means less chance of casualties, and you know we can come out unscathed.
And just like that, the Jinho Guild is born. Meanwhile, a representative from Eugene Construction approaches the S-rank hunter Cha Hae-in. Hae-in is the only S-rank hunter in Korea who isn't already associated with a guild, and Jinho's dad really wants to get her to join the new Eugene Guild. She declines and then pays a visit to her friend Jung-in, the leader of the Hunters Guild. They talk about the raid on Jeju Island and how it was actually a complete failure, with many hunters losing their lives. Jung-in vows to recruit more high-rank hunters, return to Jeju Island, and conquer it. We also catch up with some of the other survivors from the double dungeon. Joo-hee is still deeply traumatized by what happened. Mr. Song wants to prove he can still be useful despite missing an arm, and the other two survivors, Kim and Jung-ho, feel bad that they left Jinwoo in there to die. Each one of these survivors gets a notification about a nearby D-rank dungeon, and they all decide it's time to come out of retirement. Jinwoo heads to the dungeon as well, and what a coincidence! The 5 survivors from the double dungeon are all here. It's super awkward since most of them left Jinwoo to die, but Joo-hee breaks the tension by telling Jinwoo how good it is to see him, and how much he seems to have changed. The group is then joined by 3 more C-rank hunters in handcuffs. Apparently, the Korean government is letting prisoners help out with raids in exchange for a reduced sentence.
Loser, why not come get hot and heavy with me, baby?
What is this, some kind of suicide squad? The prisoners are being supervised by Tae-shi, a B-rank hunter from the association, and one of the guys who retested Jinwoo's magic power in the hospital. Still, there's no way this goes well. The next episode kicks off, and the party starts clearing through waves of goblins in the dungeons. They can't believe how much stronger Jinwoo has gotten. Of course, they have no idea just how much he's holding back. They soon come to 3 tunnels heading in different directions and decide to split up. Jinwoo can sense the boss is in the left tunnel, so he goes that way with Joo-hee and Mr. Song. Taeshik takes the right path with the prisoners, but it turns out they're not the ones who are going to be doing the killing. See, these 3 are currently serving time for assaulting a young girl who later took her own life. That girl's father was enraged that these scumbags were allowed to participate in raids to cut down their their jail time, and he paid Taeshik to make sure the convicts don't make it out of the raid alive. As a B rank, Taeshik is able to take out criminals easily. Unfortunately, it turns out the 3 tunnels are all connected, and Kim and Jong-ho happen to wander in mid-murder. Uh-oh! Jinwoo's party soon reaches the same room and find all the hunters slaughtered. Kim is the only one still breathing, but he's far too gone for Joo-hee's healing magic. With his last words, Kim apologizes to Jinwoo for leaving him to die. Mr. Song can tell their injuries weren't made by magic beasts, and suddenly, Taeshik attacks from the shadows. Mr. Song thinks he's the only one who stands a chance against this B rank, but he couldn't be more wrong. Jinwoo gets another urgent quest from the system, telling him to kill Taeshik. Jinwoo uses his full power to start blocking attacks from Taeshik, leaving everyone stunned.
Look at that agility. He's nothing like the Jinwoo I remember.
But Taeshik is an assassin build, and he can use his stealth skill to turn invisible. Fortunately, however, Jinwoo's perception stat is high enough that he can still sense Taeshik's location from his bloodlust. After a prolonged battle, Jinwoo uses his new skill called Murderous Intent, which is basically an intimidation skill that puts Taeshik into a state of panic. Jinwoo takes the opportunity to land a killing blow. As a reward, Jinwoo unlocks the stealth skill for himself. Score! After Jinwoo quickly finds and kills the dungeon's boss, the 3 hunters exit gate. They report to the Hunters Association officials that Taeshik was a murderous creep, but Mr. Song takes the credit for killing him to protect Jinwoo's secret. Then, Joo-hee reminds Jinwoo that he still owes her a date. Flirting with a guy immediately after he just killed someone in front of you is bold, Joo-hee. I like your style. In episode 10, Jinwoo and Joo-hee go for a stroll through the park. Sadly, it doesn't look like they'll be starting a serious relation anytime soon, because after 2 traumatic raids in a row, Joo-hee is planning to retire for good this time and move back to her hometown.
As I'm leaving, I'm retiring as a hunter.
Oh, I guess Jinwoo will have to find a new hunter baddie to flirt with. The next day, Jin meets up with Jinhoo and their newly assembled strike team. A team needs a minimum of 8 hunters to sign up for raids, but since Jinwoo and Jinho are the only ones who will be entering the gate, Jinho hired hunters that are cowardly, inexperienced, or just plain lazy. The strike team is unsure about this shady arrangement, and getting paid to just stand around is too good a deal for them to pass up. Among them is the E-rank Song Yi, a friend of Jinwoo's sister who just recently awakened to her abilities. Less than an hour after entering the gate, Jinwoo and Jinho exit with crystals in hand, and the strike team is shocked. They head straight to their next raid, and over the next couple days, Jinwoo farms for experience, the strike team farms for cash, and Jinho farms respect from his dad. It's a win-win-win. Eventually, Jinwoo, now at level 40, gets a notification from the system telling him he has unlocked a job change quest. Ooh, consider me intrigued. Elsewhere, another guild is starting to take notice of Jinwoo. The White Tiger Guild is one of the top guilds in Korea along with the Hunters Guild. The guild's manager, An, is looking through raid reports and realizes that Jinwoo has now miraculously survived 3 super dangerous encounters. He deduces that Jinwoo must have gone through a second awakening and tries to recruit him by offering double what Jinho is paying. When manager An approaches him, Jinwoo uses his new stealth skill to vanish from sight and basically tells An that he's not someone to be messed with.
You've been snooping around, is it?
I wouldn't call it snooping, per se.
Don't turn around.
This dude is unrecognizable from episode 1 right now. In episode 11, Jinwoo travels deep into the woods and accepts the job chain quest. Based on his stat points and builds so far, Jinwoo will get a new specialized class at the end of this quest that will unlock powerful new class abilities. As if he needed to be more OP, he is teleported into a castle, and the system tells him that recovery items are forbidden during the quest. Jinwoo battles knights, assassins, and mages, but he's strong enough now that none of them pose much of a threat. Again, his timing is terrible, but Jinwoo finally decides to check out his gear screen and equips a full set of B-rank armor. The equipment is invisible too, so he gets all the buffs without actually having to wear heavy armor. Okay, this system is way overpowered. After beating all the minions, Jinwoo opens a massive door into the castle's throne room for the next phase of his quest. His opponent is Commander Igris the Blood Red, and he is without a doubt doubt the toughest enemy Jinwoo has faced yet. Jinwoo realizes that his dagger is unable to pierce Igris's armor and switches to fight bare-handed. Igris sees this and drops his own weapons to keep the fight fair. Damn, forgive me, Commander Igris, I wasn't familiar with your game. Igris beats Jinwoo down with a flurry of punches, and before long, our guy finds himself low on HP and collapses over Igris's throne. The Red Knight then summons his sword and brings it down for a final blow, but Jinwoo catches the blade in his hand and tackles Igris right into the wall. Jinwoo equips his dagger again, activates every skill he has, and is just barely able to defeat Igris. For his reward, Jinwoo gets a ton of gold and experience, an S-rank helmet, and a new skill called Ruler's Hand. His quest isn't over though. In fact, it's just beginning. Hordes of knights start teleporting into the throne room, and the system tells Jinwoo to survive for as long as he can. But our guy is already exhausted, and after just 5 minutes, he once again drops his only teleportation stone. How can someone so incredibly powerful be so dumb? Our season finale kicks off, and Jinwoo keeps taking down as many knights as he can with his bare hands, until his knuckles are bloody and his fatigue is at its limit. He starts hearing voices from his past, taunting him for how weak he used to be, and telling him he isn't strong enough. Jinwoo has a vision of his former self who tells him it's time to give up. An enemy knight pins Jinwoo down, and just as he's about to be executed, he gets saved by an incredible stroke of luck. See, Jinwoo forgot to do his daily quest today, and just moments before his death, the clock strikes midnight, and Jinwoo is teleported to the penalty zone. And this is without putting any points into his luck stat? In the penalty zone, Jinwoo is able to access his recovery items and the system shop. He buys a new dagger that's extra effective against armor types and equips his new skill from Igris, which lets him move things with his mind. Seriously OP! Once his time in the penalty zone is up, Jinwoo is sent right back to the castle, this time at full power. He battles the knights for hours until the job change quest is over. The moment of truth is finally here, and the system tells Jinwoo his new class, Necromancer. Wait, what? Jinwoo is shocked too. He was expecting something like an assassin or a berserker, but since he barely put any points into his magic stats, necromancy was the last thing on his mind. At first, he tries to decline, but the system tells him it's a hidden class, and he can't resist how cool that sounds. Once he accepts, the system tells him that because he performed so well in the quest, his class is automatically upgraded to Shadow Monarch. With his new class, he can extract a shadow from a fallen enemy and add them to his army. Jinwoo tests it out on Igris and his soldiers, and the army of shadow soldiers kneel to their new master. Whoa, okay, necromancy is badass. Meanwhile, on the outside, the Hunters Association is preparing for the 4th Jeju Island raid, hoping that this will be the time they finally defeat the ants once and for all. A team of S-ranks, including Guildmaster Jong-in and Haein, lands on the island to scout it out. As soon as they do, they are horrified to find the ants have evolved since last time, and now have wings. Okay, do we really need this island that badly? Find another vacation spot, damn it! The first episode of Season 2 kicks off with a bang. Jinwoo attending his sister's parent-teacher conference. Gina's teacher tells Jinwoo that Gina's friend Song Yi has stopped coming to class since she awakened as a hunter, and asks Jinwoo to try and convince Song Yi to stay in school. Jinwoo agrees to take her on a little ride-along because he's such a good older brother that he'll look out for girls he isn't even related to. Nice one, Jinwoo! Meanwhile, the terrifying Dong-soo has just arrived in Korea from the US. He's the S-rank hunter whose brother Dong-suk was killed by Jinwoo. Dong-soo is greeted by an official from the Hunters Association, and the hulking S-rank hunter confirms that he only came back to Korea to get revenge on Jinwoo and Jin-ho.
First the E rank, then the D rank.
A super illegal thing to say, but hey, he's an S rank, so who's gonna stop him? Later, Jinwoo and Song Yi tag along on a C rank raid that the White Tigers are about to start. The second they all step through the gate into a vast frozen wasteland, it transforms into a red gate. A red gate basically means the dungeon will be way harder than a typical C rank, and there is no way in or out until they kill the boss. The party is immediately ambushed by ice elves, and they end up losing one of their C A-rank hunters before the elves retreat into the forest. Song Yi is terrified, but Jinwoo promises to protect her. Aww. The party splits into two teams, one with Jinwoo, Song Yi, and two other hunters, and the other led by the White Tiger's tanky A-rank Kim Chul. I know which team I'd like to be on. Jinwoo buys some nice fur coats from the system shop for his team and calls out his shadow army for their first fight. Igris and his men are strong enough to slay all the ice bears in the dungeon without Jinwoo even lifting a finger himself. Jinwoo extracts the shadows of the slain ice bears, and he now has even more beasts at his disposal. Is this RPG turning into an auto battler? Also, Dong-soo hears about this whole thing and heads straight to the Red Gate himself. He prays for Jinwoo to make it out of the dungeon alive so that he himself can kill Jinwoo personally. When will they realize the more challenges you throw at this guy, the stronger he gets? Our second episode of this season opens, and the psychotic Dong-soo says he doesn't think there's any way Jinwoo was strong enough to kill his brother, and he really just wants an excuse to kill someone. Damn, they really just let anyone be a hunter, huh? He almost gets into a fight with the White Tiger's S-rank guildmaster, Baek Yun-ho, but then Dong-soo is called away on urgent business. Ugh, another lucky break for Jinwoo. Meanwhile, things have not been going well for the A-team. Chul's entire team is wiped out by the Ice Elves, and the A-rank hunter barely manages to escape with his life. When Chul comes across the other team wearing fur coats and enjoying some bear meat around the fire, he snaps and attacks his fellow hunters. Jinwoo knocks the guy out instantly so he can focus on the real threat. The dungeon's boss has just shown, along with an entire band of Ice Elves. Oh god! The leader of the elves starts speaking to Jinwoo, and they're both surprised to learn that thanks to the system, Jinwoo can now speak their elf language fluently. The leader introduces himself as Barca and tells Jinwoo that every magic beast has a voice in their head directing them to kill humans. However, this voice is not telling them to kill Jinwoo, which Barca says must mean that Jinwoo isn't human. Barca then offers to let Jinwoo live if he gives up the other hunters, but he refuses and summons his shadow army. Here we go! An all-out battle begins between the elves and Jinwoo's Nightbear squad. Chul wakes up again and attacks Jinwoo, but Igris intercepts him with a killing blow. Jinwoo extracts Chul's shadow and adds a monstrous tank beast named Iron to his roster. Barca proves to be Jinwoo's toughest opponent yet. With the help from Iron and Igris, he's able to activate stealth and land a fatal stab.
Looks like it's over.
Jinwoo tries to extract Barca's shadow, but it fails due to Barca being too high of a level. Jinwoo will just have to settle for a couple more levels and Barca's dagger. Then his team exits the gate and Song Yi tells Jinwoo that she now wants to be a hunter even more than before. Ah, well, that backfired. In the next episode, Jinwoo and his shadow boys are back to grinding out dungeons with Jinho, trying to get a couple more levels before tackling the demon's castle. At night, Jinwoo goes drinking with Jinho, and the two boys reveal that they consider each other to be more like brothers than friends. Aww! Tanjiro might have a rival for best big bro MC! Jinwoo heads back to the demon's castle to get the ingredients for the elixir of life. The system gives him a new quest to slay 10,000 demons. Once that's done, a door opens to the second floor where he has to kill 10,000 more. And there are 100 floors. Yeah, he's gonna be at this for a while. Having a literal army at his command is a huge help though, and before long, Jinwoo has reached floor 75 and finds 2 of the 3 required ingredients. Looks like he'll have his mom back in no time. Over in America, a wild-looking man named Il-wan suddenly emerges from a gate and claims to have been trapped in a dungeon for the last 10 years. Dong-soo is called to interrogate this man, and Il-wan tries to warn him that gates and magic beasts are just a precursor to a much larger catastrophe. The man also shares that he has a wife and a son named Jinwoo. Oh, wait, could it just be a coincidence? As soon as Dong-soo hears this, he taunts Il-wan by telling him that his son is dead. We then jump a bit ahead to see that the detention center has been completely demolished. Il-wan has escaped, and the S-rank Dong-soo has been utterly defeated. Seriously, this family is insane. In episode 4, Jinwoo realizes that he has gotten so high level at this point that if he wants to make any real gains, he'll have to start joining mining raids at A rank and above, so he decides it's time to stop pretending he's still an E rank and goes to retake the hunter assessment. Jinwoo uses a mana meter to check his power level, but he's so insanely strong that the machine can't even measure it.
His mana levels are so incredibly high that they can't even be measured by our equipment.
This has only happened a handful of times in the past, and it can only mean one thing. Jinwoo is now an S rank. Guildmaster Jong-in from the Hunters Guild and Yoon Ho from the White Tigers try to recruit him, but Jinwoo ignores them both. He gets a job offer from Chairman Go Gun-hee, a once legendary hunter who is now much older and the chairman of the Hunters Association, but Jinwoo turns him down as well. He's already got a full-time job, and that's the grind. The association asks Jinwoo to come back in a week for a reassessment to make his S rank status official, but he's not big on waiting around. Our guy joins the mining team for an A rank dungeon and sneaks off from the other miners to go find the boss for himself. When he reaches the boss chamber, Jinwoo is stopped by the S rank hunter Haein. Episode 5 starts, and Jinwoo plays it off like he's just a confused miner and heads back to the mana crystals. Haein stops him just long enough for her to sniff his chest. Okay. Apparently, Haein has a unique sense of smell, and Jinwoo is the first hunter she's met who didn't smell bad to her. Nice! We're at the attractive women think you smell good part of the power fantasy. He may not have been able to fight the boss, but Jinwoo does such a good job mining that he is offered a job carrying equipment during an A rank raid the next day. Jinwoo meets the strike team for this raid, led by the A rank hunter Son Ki-hoon. This supposedly high-level squad is having trouble against a group of high orcs, but Jinwoo uses his stealth to weaken the orcs without being seen. Realizing this dungeon is tougher than expected, the party turns around to retreat, but finds a magic barrier blocking the gate. They are then cornered by a massive horde of orcs led by the monstrous Kargalgan. The orc tells Ki-hoon that he can choose between dying here or coming back to the orc's base. Ki-hoon is brave, but clearly not the best strategist, as he agrees to follow the orcs and tells Jinwoo to try and escape as soon as the fighting starts. Something tells me that's not exactly what Jinwoo is planning. On the outside, Haein is still suspicious of Jinwoo and follows him into the gate. Be honest, ma'am. You just want to smell him more. The next episode opens inside the orc's base, where Kargalgan shares that the reason he wanted to bring the hunters back here was so he could torture and devour them for his troops' entertainment. Who could have guessed? To his credit, Ki-hoon is the only member of his party who isn't paralyzed by fear and charges at Kargalgan, but the monster uses telekinesis to smash Ki-hoon against the ground. Jinwoo intervenes and tells Ki-hoon to escape with the others while he takes on the orcs alone. Jinwoo summons his shadow army using a new skill called Monarch's Domain, which will buff all his dudes by 50% within a limited area. Initially, Jinwoo's guys are way outnumbered by the orcs, but every time they take an orc down, Jinwoo can extract their soul and bring them over to his side. Haein, along with 3 association officials, reach the base and observe Jinwoo furiously battling Kargalgan. The poor orc chief gets jumped by shadows of his own men, and before long, Kargalgan himself has become another soldier in Jinwoo's army, renamed Tusk. Damn, this squad is rolling deep! Our next episode kicks off with Jinwoo going to the Hunters Association for his reassessment. He holds nothing back and shows the association his shadow army as well as his insane physical abilities. A famous actor who recently awakened happens to be holding a press conference right outside, but once word spreads that there's a new S rank in town, the reporters start mobbing Jinwoo. Around the country, all of Jinwoo's friends are shocked to learn of his true power. Jinwoo goes to a magic shop and sells all his unused gear to buy even higher ranked gear. He leaves some of his shadow soldiers at home to protect Gina and heads back to finish the last 25 floors of the demon's castle. His shadow boys are able to do most of the work at this point, and Jinwoo himself only has to step in for the boss of each floor. On floor 80, he's about to slay the armored boss when a female voice asks for mercy from inside the armor. Meanwhile, in a coastal town near Jeju Island, a flying ant beast lands and starts attacking humans. These damn ants! In episode 8, the floor 80 boss takes off her helmet to reveal a young demon woman who introduces herself as Essel, a princess from a family of demon nobility. She tells Jinwoo she can give him the key to this floor and tell him where to find the keys on the upper floors if he spares her life. Ooh, handy! With his new demon guide, Jinwoo Jinwoo keeps exploring while trying to get more information about magic beasts from Essel. She tells him that all monsters used to live in the demon realm and were one day transported to these dungeons. But before she can say more, she glitches out as the system stops her from talking. Meanwhile, the Hunters Association gets reports that the ants are getting more aggressive, and they ramp up their plans for the next Jeju Island raid. This time, they're pulling out all the stops, and they're even collaborating with the Japanese Hunters Association, who will be sending 10 of their own S-ranks along on the mission. I'm crossing my fingers that Kurapika is one of them. Eventually, Jinwoo reaches the final floor and comes face to face with the Demon King Baran, an imposing knight riding atop a white dragon. This battle of Shadow Monarch versus Demon Monarch is absolutely insane, and Baran takes down even Jinwoo's strongest shadow soldiers like it's nothing. Essel decides to betray her own kind and distracts Baran, allowing Jinwoo the opportunity to tear the Demon King's arms with his raw strength. The fight ends with Jinwoo completely obliterating Baran's head with an uppercut that parts all the clouds in the sky. Demon's Castle cleared. We're in episode 9 now, and Jinwoo has collected all the ingredients he needs to craft the elixir of life. But Mom will have to wait just a little longer because Jinwoo has a dragon soul to extract. He names his new dragon warrior Kaisel and unlocks a new class ability that will let him switch places with any of his shadows instantly. Jesus, could he get any more overpowered? Jinwoo hurries to his mother's hospital room and pours the elixir down her throat. Miraculously, it works, and Jinwoo's mother wakes up for the first time in years. She tells her son how much older he looks and how proud of him she is, and Jinwoo breaks down in tears. Gina is called to the hospital, and it's a beautiful family reunion. Chairman Go summons Jinwoo to the Hunters Association to ask him to join the Jeju Island raid. Jinwoo recognizes it'd be a great opportunity to level up, but now that he's reached his goal of saving his mother, he doesn't even really know what he's fighting for. I don't know, saving people from giant killer ants feels like a good reason. Just then, the S-rank hunters from Japan arrive, and their strongest member, Guildmaster Goto, proposes a friendly free-for-all sparring match between Japan and Korea. Unless they have a Japanese Jinwoo hiding somewhere, I know which side I'm betting on. The next episode starts with the hunters from both countries going all out against each other, and the Japanese S-ranks quickly prove they're just as powerful as their Korean counterparts. Hei-in injures a masked hunter, causing him to snap and try to hurt her for real. Jinwoo steps in and blocks a massive blow with just his forearm, stopping the fight. Goto is impressed by this and challenges Jinwoo to a one-on-one fight, which Jinwoo accepts under the condition that Goto doesn't hold back. Japan's strongest hunter is offended by this, but he quickly learns the reason for Jinwoo's confidence.
Evading such quick attacks is very impressive.
Jinwoo dodges every one of Goto's attacks and taunts the guildmaster on, but before they can both reach their full power, the other S-ranks stop the fight. Stop teasing us! I want to see S-ranks going all out! Over on the island, the Queen of the Ants is celebrating that her strongest soldier, the Ant King, is finally about to be born. Seriously, I'm getting some major deja vu here. After the sparring match, Jinwoo decides that the other 15 S-ranks should be able to handle Jeju Island on their own. He would rather stay home with his mother, who has been in a coma for 4 years, which is pretty hard to argue with. The next day, the joint operation finally begins. A-rank hunters are stationed on battleships surrounding the island while the S-ranks head for the mainland. And just to add even more tension, the whole mission is being streamed live to the entire world. On our primary strike team, we've of course got the elegant Hei-in, Guildmasters Jong-in and Yoon-ho, along with the S-rank healer Byung-gyu, their tank Dong-wook, and the archer Tae-gyu, and a civilian cameraman, who is probably the bravest character in this entire series. The powerhouse team heads right into the ant tunnels to find the queen. Over on the other side of the island, the Japanese hunters are having no problem with the soldier ants, but then, without warning, one of the Japanese S-ranks gets beheaded in the blink of an eye. Ooh, I think King has arrived. In episode 11, the Japanese hunters get picked off one by something too fast to even see, without even getting the opportunity to put up a fight. The Korean team, in the meantime, has found the queen and is preparing for a tough fight against her royal guards. The human tank Dong-wook grows to a massive size. Jong-in starts launching huge fireball attacks, and Yoon-ho turns into a werewolf because, yeah, that's something he can do. The queen is tough as hell, but thanks to some top-tier healing from from Byung-gyu, the strike team is able to keep attacking until their opponent is finally slain. All across Korea, people start celebrating, but it might be a bit early for that. The king, a terrifying lightning-quick black ant, returns to the nest and walks right up to the body of his fallen queen. He bellows in rage and immediately attacks the hunters, sending each of them flying with just a single blow. They're able to hang on for a bit thanks to their camouflaged healer, but the king is perceptive enough to detect an invisible Byung-gyu and punches right through the poor guy. The king realizes that these hunters are no match for him, and he flies off to find a more worthy foe. And that's bad news for Japan's strongest hunter, since Goto is now the most powerful hunter left on the island. At home, Jinwoo sees the live broadcast cut out and decides it's finally time for him to step in. Took you long enough. Jinwoo had some of his shadow soldiers hiding within the shadows of the S-rank hunters, just so he could swap places with one of them if the situation ever got out of hand. And I'd say it's officially out of hand. The next episode kicks off with Jinwoo teleporting right into the queen's chamber, much to the surprise of the injured S-ranks. Our OPMC starts handing out health potions, and they work for everyone except Hae-in, whose HP is too low, and Byung-gyu, who's, well, dead. Oh, and Goto has also been killed, before we ever really got the chance to see his true strength. Guess we won't be getting that Japanese spin-off after all. The king senses his new powerful presence and returns to the chamber. He asks Jinwoo if he is the king of humans. Jinwoo starts pummeling the Ant King with his bare hands, but the king is able to land a single blow laced with poison. Jinwoo is weakened by the toxin, but uses a detox skill to instantly neutralize the effects. The Ant King sheds his exoskeleton to reveal his true form, and the battle reaches an insane pitch. The Ant King thinks that Jinwoo is likely his perfect equal in strength, but can't understand how he is able to continue getting stronger during the fight. I guess he had a couple stat points tucked away for a rainy day. Jinwoo slices off the king's arms while his shadow army demolishes the remaining ants. Eventually, the king panics and tries to escape, but Jinwoo activates his mutilation skill to finish him off with a flurry of blows. Let's freaking go! Also, cameraman was able to fix the live stream just in time for all of Korea to see how insanely strong Jinwoo is. The season finale begins, and despite this incredible victory, Hae-in is still on death's door, with nothing from Jinwoo's inventory helping at all. Even the elixir of life has no effect. Just then, Jinwoo hears a voice from the dead Byung-gyu. The S-rank healer asks Jinwoo to use his power to save Hae-in, so Jinwoo extracts Byung-gyu's shadow. The shadow uses powerful healing magic to save Hae-in, and then Jinwoo releases the shadow from his control so that Byung-gyu can rest peacefully. With their king and queen dead, the rest of the ants go berserk and try to escape the island. Jinwoo extracts the Ant King's shadow and gets his strongest soldier yet. He names this new unit Beirut, and he's also the first shadow actually capable of speech. Jinwoo sends Beirut out to destroy all of the remaining ants. Oh, and in the middle of this, Jinwoo hits level 100. Damn, is there even a level cap in this system? We then get a glimpse of China's strongest hunter, a long-haired man wielding dual daggers. If he's anything like Japan's strongest hunter, I'm sure he'll prove to be a huge disappointment. Anyway, the 4th Jeju Island raid was a complete success, and later, Jinwoo is congratulated by Chairman Go. The association chairman asks Jinwoo what he plans to do next, and Jinwoo responds that he's been thinking about starting a guild of his own, presumably a one-man guild. Then, we get a real mysterious scene back on Jeju Island. An ice elf and a beastly man discuss an unnamed powerful being who was the one that granted Jinwoo his power. They're not happy with this development, but say that the hunt will continue as planned and Jinwoo will not be able to stop them. Little do they know, Jinwoo's dad is hiding in the corner watching this whole conversation. I have a lot of questions, but they're gonna have to wait, because season 2 is just about wrapped up. Across the country, the other S-ranks vow to get stronger so they never have to be saved again. Jinwoo himself is stuck in traffic when a gate suddenly appears and he heads in solo. It transforms into another red gate, and Jinwoo summons his army to take on whatever challenge comes their way. And there you have it, the entire story of Solo Leveling so far. This show is truly one of the most straight up unashamed power fantasies I've ever seen, and honestly, I'm all here for it. This is another great example of a series with an overpowered MC done right. I mean, this dude Jinwoo brought aura farming back into the mainstream, and even without all the hype scenes and big fights and unlimited budget animation, Solo Leveling is also a story about survival, family bonds, and self-sacrifice. While I do hope Jinwoo starts to face some real challenges in future seasons, it's undeniably fun watching this guy casually destroy every enemy in his way. But what do you think? How does Jinwoo stack up against other MCs? Is this the best Hunters vs. Ants arc in anime? Make sure to leave a comment, don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, we'll see you next time.